Good morning, good morning. Some technical gremlins this morning, but they have been defeated. So it is a sunny, beautiful day here in Northern California today. Happy Thursday, December 19th. I've heard it said that at the end of our lives, none of us are going to ask ourselves, was I a good Tony Robbins? Was I a good Oprah? Was I a good this person or a good that person? But we very well may ask ourselves, was I the very best version of me that I could be? I think the two hardest questions that we ask ourselves in life are, number one, who am I? And number two, what do I want? These are deceptively simple questions that I think most people spend their entire lives struggling with. They struggle because most people accept that they are what other people have told them they are. Whether that be the expectations put on you as a kid, or who your spouse needs you to be for them, or what your job requires you to be, or what society expects from you. If a person doesn't know or decide for themselves who they are, the world will tell you who you are, I promise. Most people go through life accepting that. They accept that they are who the world tells them they are. And then there are those people who by fate or by circumstance or some other unknown force wake up and they go, wait a minute. This isn't who I am. It's like they wake up one day, they put on a shirt and they go, hang on, this doesn't fit. This doesn't feel right. And it's those people that start asking that question. Well, if I'm not that, then who am I? If I stop letting the world tell me who I am, then who am I? How would I answer that question? How would I self-define? For me, this has been a long, gradual and repetitive process. I grew up in a small rural community, in a really insulated family, in a small conservative family church, which isn't an environment that's really supportive of self-exploration. And were I not gay, I wouldn't have had the necessity to stray too far from that environment. But I am gay, and I knew early on in my life that I didn't fit in. I felt like an alien, and I knew that staying in that environment wouldn't be possible for me. And my life's path took me to college as a first-generation college student, then moving to another state for grad school, earning a degree that I never used, by the way. Then I started my own business as somebody who didn't go to business school, who didn't have the first clue about running a business. And along the way, I made a metric shit ton of mistakes. I made some whopper of mistakes. My first employees were basically paid under the table. I didn't know anything about paying taxes, which led to some letters from this group called the IRS. I didn't know what the IRS was or why they were important. I amassed some significant credit card debt. I hired an assistant to pay my bills for me. Then the recession of '08 hits, money is tight, and he didn't tell me that the way that we were getting by was by skipping on my car payment. So I walk out of the office one day and my car is gone. It had been repossessed. I didn't even know that was a thing. So I've made some really big mistakes. I've made big mistakes in relationships. I had terrible communication skills, and I thought that the way that you resolved a relationship issue was that you just leave. You just ghost the person because clearly this is not going to work. And the list goes on and on and on. But eventually, I got it together. And little bits by little bits, and with the help and support of others, not least of whom was my now husband, Pasha, I stopped tripping all over myself as much. I figured a few things out. I had a run of some really good, really successful years. And so I decide, in all my infinite wisdom, I'm going to write a book about this. And so I start doing speaking gigs, and I start teaching what I wrote about in the book. And by the way, some of these gigs are really big gigs. I'm talking to global leadership at Dell, and I'm talking to JP Morgan Chase and UBS, and I teach a college class, and my book is the primary text for that college class. And then about a year ago, I went dark. I stopped it all. I stopped promoting the book, I stopped podcasting, stopped the newsletter, I stopped it all. What happened? And this week, I've been sharing a few things. I've talked about that harsh inner critic. I've talked about career confusion. Yesterday, I talked about working from memory instead of imagination. Today, I want to talk about another one of those reasons, and that reason is that I felt like a fraud. Here I am, giving talks. People are reading my book, which is about mindset and breaking free and stepping into who you are. And I talk about my battle with depression and how I approach that. And then, lo and behold, I got depressed. That giant gray cloud moves in, and if you've ever experienced depression, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm thinking, my God, you talk about getting free and managing depression and anxiety and feeling trapped, and here you are, trapped, depressed, and anxious. You're nothing but a fraud. Shut up. Stop talking. You are not qualified to offer anybody any advice. So enter the harsh critic, and away we go. That little voice was going to take me for a trip. The imposter syndrome was working overtime, and self-compassion has never been my strength. I'm extremely hard on myself. And to find myself in a position where I felt like a hypocrite, a fraud, I couldn't bear it. The self-loathing and the self-hatred were incredibly intense. How can I show up for others when I've been doing a lousy job showing up for myself? That was the dialogue in my head. And so for about a year, I decided that voice was the truth. That voice was me. That's who I am. That voice of doubt and self-hatred, it became the dominant voice in my head. It's the voice that told me, Chad Peavy, shut up. And so I resigned in defeat. So what do? I go get a job. It's what people do. You know, you're not an entrepreneur. You're going to enter the workforce. Go get a job. In my entire adult life, I've never had a salaried job until last year. And I absolutely hated it. I hated everything about it. Every day was miserable. For me, it was absolutely hell on earth. I hated this job. And what's ironic about that is that hating that job and being in that environment felt really familiar to me. It's like, here's another alien experience. It's like being, once again, that gay kid in Arkansas. I know I don't belong here, and I'm painfully aware I don't belong here. So ironically, life is forcing me again to ask myself, who am I? We're back. That persistent, difficult question, who am I? Am I the person who gives in? And am I the person who resigns in the face of a setback? Am I somebody that lets my depression get the best of me? Life has a funny way of teaching us the lessons that we need and that are demanded by our lives. And I clearly forgot who I was. And life was determined to remind me. I'm back to asking myself, who am I? Who am I? I'm struggling to answer this question again as I walk through the 7 levels of hell that is this job. And somewhere along the way, I remind myself of a portion of a talk that I used to give. And it's usually the last thing that I say and I leave the audience with when I give talks. And when I do this talk in person, before the talk begins, everybody gets a blank key, a blank uncut key. And so at the end of the talk, I ask them to grab that key and to hold that key. And I say, this key, this blank uncut key is functionally useless. It will open no doors. It will open no locks. What gives a key its function, its usefulness, are the grooves and the indentations that get cut into the key. It's the scars that get cut into that key that make it something useful. And so too is our lives. It is very common for us to try to hide those scars, to try to smooth over the ups and the downs, to try to put forth an image of perfection. But what makes your life useful are your scars. Because it's those grooves and those indentations, those ups and downs of your life that form the key that will unlock your life, that will unlock your potential, that will open the doors to realizing your dreams. It's also the key that's going to unlock somebody else's life. And some keys are going to open just one lock, and that's enough. But some are going to open many. You are the key that can unlock somebody else's lives. So I quit that shitty job and I started talking again because that is who I am. I am perfectly imperfect. May you have joy, peace, and happiness, good health and well-being, a life of ease and prosperity. the courage to get what you want from this life, the clarity to know what that is, the imagination to not sell yourself short, and the discipline to see it through. I hope you have a great day.